Hey, pet and parent family, welcome back to Pocket Coaching. We are on a mission to connect with you on a regular basis, jumping in your ears and giving you some wisdom, insights, tips to help unhook you, help change the framing that you might have, get over the stumbling blocks that might be holding you back. So I'm joined today by Katie Hadley, my partner in crime for Pet and Parent Longevity. And we're going to talk today about the power of a made-up mind and what that actually means. So here's the thing, and you may realize this, but it might be one of those things you actually haven't given conscious thought to. It's just kind of there in your subconscious awareness. But if you're ever in a position where you have to make a decision and you don't know what to do and you're procrastinating over that decision, you're literally sitting on that proverbial fence of which, do I go this way or that way? Which do I decide, A or B? That position is very uncomfortable. That place of mental uncertainty is very unsettling, and we know it. We feel it in our body, we feel it in our head. We can't sleep at night, it wakes us up. Do you know what I mean? Like, has anyone ever lived that? Put yes, I have. If you've in the comments, if that's been you at some point in your life, you're like, I just don't know. So the whole idea today is to get you out of that place, is to set you free from having to be in the pain of indecision and into the power of the made-up mind. Because once you make a decision, it just changes how you feel a sense of peace. Or conversely, you don't, but it actually illuminates for you that you needed to make the other decision. So sometimes deciding will not just get you off the fence into that, like, oh, I just don't know, place, into, heck no, that was the wrong choice. I'm going to quickly flip and take that one. But either way, you've got the right answer. You're not stuck there in limbo.
I think one thing that people fail to realize, though, is that sitting on the fence as you're contemplating your decision, sitting on the fence is a decision in and of itself. So by not acting, that's an action. That's a decision to stay right where you are. And if right where you are is a good place to be, then great. But I think most of the time we're in this position of being on the fence because we know we don't want to be where we currently are. We know something has to change. And so let's kind of bring this back to health, which is essentially what we're talking about, but we haven't said it yet. How do you think of that, Penny, when we think about sitting on the fence, making a decision to just kind of wait and be indecisive and being stuck in that place? What might someone actually, what kind of situation might we actually be in?
I mean, there are so many scenarios where you could be faced with a challenging choice, right? Let's be real, not all decisions are easy. Like, do you want vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream? Like, some of them are super easy. Some of them are, well, this possible treatment or this possible treatment, that can be quite scary. And you want to weigh up a lot more of the pros and cons, and you want to look at the cost involved, the time involved, the success rates, and a whole bunch of things. So you want to go on a fact-finding mission. That usually has a time limit on it. There's a point where now you must decide. So gather your facts quickly, or as quickly as you can, and get the support around you of the people who can give you insight. Oh, I've walked that path. This is what my story was. This is what happened to me when I did that. That kind of thing can be really helpful, as well as those hard facts. But that's only half of the pathway to get out of confusion and into clarity, right? Ultimately, you still have to make that decision. So when it comes to a health issue, we know, right, that the longer you leave something, usually the worse it gets, right? And guys, you guys are typically, guys like boy guys, are typically notorious for deferring going and seeing a doctor or a GP or something or other, because they're like, I'm strong, tough, I can take the pain, I've got the grit, I don't want to find out, like, that's a bit scary, but I'll just muscle it out and hopefully it'll be okay. And if only they had come back, they've gone to the doctor 6 months earlier, then their whole prognosis could have been totally different. Girls, we tend to be a little bit better about that. We're not so resistant to discovering. But here's the thing, here's the gap when it comes to your pets, is so many pets are not given the regular yearly checkup. If nothing's going wrong with them, we assume that they're absolutely fine. Whereas that yearly checkup, or 6 monthly in some cases, is an opportunity to have a full spectrum diagnosis and pick things up super, super early. And I mean, I was talking to someone earlier today who confirmed for me, I mean, I've heard this from many sources before, but, and you've heard me say it, is your conventional vet is requesting that you come in for an annual vaccination, not because your pets need an annual vaccination, but because it's a pull, it's a technique for them to get you in the door once a year so that they can do a checkup of your pets. So it's a dark thing for a good reason. So instead of letting that be the pathway, I encourage you to get rid of the dark side of it and just go for the light and go for that checkup, because then when you have the information, you can make decisions faster because they're not such hard decisions. So that would be the first one that comes to my mind. But I think it's you've probably got a really good one as well. What would be your experience?
Well, one of the kind of most obvious ones that comes to mind is people sitting on the fence related to, they're on the fence about embarking on the journey. And so they're wanting to take the journey, but they're actually, by sitting on the fence, you're actually deciding not to take the journey. You're deciding to postpone it. And that first step is so often, I mean, I truly believe that the first step is legitimately the hardest part, because so much, not because the actual first step is hard, but because the decision, all of the mental effort that has to go into making the decision and making the commitment can be really taxing, and it can be really scary to set off on the journey. But once we can make up our mind, I mean, that's half the battle right there. It's like, for some reason, this is coming to mind. A few years ago, I trained for a marathon, and I had never been a runner before. In fact, I would say, oh my gosh, I'm not a runner. Like, I hate running, like, give me my yoga or whatever. And I realized that I had this mental block about running. And I realized that I was deciding not to be a runner. And so I did what the most logical thing would be to do, and I signed up for a marathon. And I had no idea what I was doing. And the training of it was just brutal, because again, I made so many mishaps. This goes back to like why you should work with someone who kind of knows what they're doing, because it'll save you some like sprained body parts. But the marathon itself wasn't really a big deal compared to the journey, and it was nothing compared to the mental decision, the decision that had to go into starting that journey, and the decision that had to go into taking the first step of the 18-mile run on my day off on the weekend. Like it's truly, and so whether you're an athlete or this is just your health journey, if you're deciding to wait and see, if you're deciding to think about it more, you're deciding to allow life to sort of happen to you. You're deciding to be reactive versus proactive. When the reality is you could really take control. You could sign up for that marathon and get a coach so you don't sprain your foot. But what you said at the beginning of this, Penny, the power of a made up mind, that's truly, truly what it comes down to.
Yeah, because if you don't make a decision, then you are in a place of inaction, and the default will happen to you. Like you become now a passive player instead of an active driver, right? Circumstances will happen to you, and you will become a victim of whatever those circumstances happen to be. They may be terrible, they may be mild, but nonetheless, you're the victim here, not the victor, right? When you make a decision, you can say, I'm going to overcome that, whatever that might be, a fear of running, right? Or a belief of I can't run, or I'm not sure what my medical tests are going to say, or I don't have the information, but I'll talk to a specialist who does. Like there's 100, like you get to lead your own life, your own health, and get the outcome that it is you're looking for. If you don't decide, then you just get whatever fate throws down at you, right? It's literally what cards did you get in the deck, and now that's the way the game is going to play. and there's only one person at the table in that scenario who wins. So don't let that be what you're defaulting into. Take control of that by making a decision. You give yourself a time limit of, I need to gather facts in order to have an informed decision that I feel confident to make, right? So that's the first thing. But give yourself a time limit, 1 week, 24 hours, whatever the circumstance is right for you. Then you say, at that point, I make the decision. And then you know then that you're now no longer in this pain point of indecisiveness, but you're in a path of action, because once you make the first decision, you know what the next step is. Whereas you stay on that fence, you've got no idea which way you're even going, right? You're in such a pull that you can't act, because both of them are going to be wrong, right? Once you make the decision, you have a right next step. And that is incredibly liberating at the same time as maybe possibly a little bit scary, but that's why you don't do it alone.
Speaking of not doing it alone, today is our detoxification workshop. So join us in just a few hours if you're watching this right when it comes out. If not, you can always catch the replay. But join us for a detoxification workshop today, where we're going to be talking about the In-Out Optimize framework for you and your pet, so that you don't have to, because this really is one area that people feel a little bit scared by, a little bit indecisive, know it's important, don't really know what that means or where to go with it. Don't you worry, we have you covered. So we will see you in a few hours, and then we'll be back next week for pocket coaching.